It was one of those sweltering August afternoons in Chicago where the humidity clings to your skin like a second layer. Navy Pier stretched out before us, crowded with tourists shuffling along in that particular summer days that I remember the smell of fried dough and lake water, that unique Chicago blend of sweetness and decay. Maya walked beside me, her bare shoulder occasionally brushing against my arm. Every time we touched, a little electric current ran through me. She wore this thin white tank top that clung to her in the damp air, and I kept catching glimpses of the lace pattern of her bra through the fabric. Her jeans were those artfully ripped ones that hugged her hips in a way that made my throat feel tight. I'd known her since college, but in the last few months something had shifted. That we weren't dating, not exactly, but we weren't not dating either. That we existed in that frustrating, exhilarating limbo of almost. "I can't believe you've never been on the carousel," she said, her voice cutting through the drone of the crowd. She turned to look at me, and the sun caught the gloss on her lower lip. That I had this sudden, inappropriate urge to know what that lip gloss tasted like. Strawberry, probably. Everything about Maya seemed like it should taste like strawberries. "I'm a grown man, Maya. Carousels aren't really my scene," I said, shoving my hands in my pockets. "It's historic. And it's automated. No creepy carousel operator. Just you, me, and the majestic painted horses." She grinned, a flash of perfect white teeth, and hooked her arm through mine. Her skin was warm. That I could feel the fine bones of her wrist. "Come on, Mark, live a little." I let her pull me toward the pavilion. The automated carousel was a Chicago landmark, a beautiful, restored antique from the 1920s, but it ran on a modern, silent computer system. It was famous for its vast library of songs, thousands of rolls of music programmed to play at random. As we got closer, I could hear the faint, tinny strains of a calliope tune drifting over the sounds of the pier. It was cheerful. Normal. We bought tickets from a kiosk. The girl in the booth, a bored-looking teenager with a nose ring, didn't even look up from her phone. The line was short, just a few families with oversugared kids. Maya leaned against the wooden railing that encircled the ride, and the posture made the hem of her tank top ride up, exposing a sliver of tanned, smooth stomach. I looked away, feeling a flush of heat that had nothing to do with the sun. This was a bad idea. I was too keyed up, too aware of her. It made me feel exposed, like everyone could see the direction of my thoughts. That's when I first noticed him. He was just standing there, on the other side of the carousel, watching the horses go up and down. A tall, gaunt man in a dark suit that looked too heavy for the weather. His hair was a strange, uniform silver, cut short and severe. He wasn't watching the ride with the fond nostalgia of a tourist or the weary patience of a parent. He was just watching. His hands were clasped behind his back, perfectly still. "You okay?" Maya asked, following my gaze. "See a ghost?" "No, just that guy, his suit." Maya squinted. "Weird. Maybe he's from a funeral." The song ended, and a new one began. A jaunty, familiar circus march. The carousel slowed to a stop, and the gate opened. The families disembarked, and we moved forward with the new batch of riders. Maya made a beeline for a large black stallion with a wild, painted eye. I chose the horse next to hers, a white mare with a gilded saddle. As the ride started up again, the new song began to play. It was a slow, melancholic waltz. Something about it was immediately, profoundly wrong. It was like a cold finger tracing its way down my spine. I knew this song. I knew it from a place I never wanted to visit again. "This is a sad one," Maya commented, swaying slightly with the motion of her horse. Her hair, dark and thick, swished across her back. I watched the muscles in her calves flex as she adjusted her stance in the stirrups. I couldn't answer. My mouth had gone dry. The song. It was the song my mother used to play on the old upright piano in our living room. Not a famous song, just a simple, sad little tune she'd made up. She'd play it when she was feeling low. And she'd played it the day Buster died. Buster was my childhood dog, a scrappy little terrier mutt I'd gotten for my 6th birthday. He'd been hit by a car on a rainy afternoon. I'd found him on the side of the road, his small body broken. I'd carried him home, sobbing, and my mother, her own face streaked with tears, had sat at the piano and played this exact, mournful waltz as he took his last, shuddering breaths in my lap. It was the first time I'd ever seen something die. The song was etched into my memory, a soundtrack to that specific, Childhood-shattering grief that I'd never heard it anywhere else. Ever? Mark? You're white as a sheet. Maya's voice was laced with concern. This song, I managed to choke out. I know this song. It's pretty, kinda depressing for a carousel though. The carousel turned, and as my horse descended, I got a clear view of the man in the suit that he was no longer watching the ride in general, that he was watching me. His eyes were a pale, watery blue, and they were locked directly on mine, that he didn't smile, that he didn't blink, that he just watched. That a cold dread, entirely separate from the memory of Buster, began to pool in my stomach. The song continued, each note a tiny hammer on the shell of my composure. That it was impossible. This song didn't exist outside of my mother's piano and my own haunted memories. The ride finally, mercifully ended. The waltz faded out, replaced by the general noise of the pier. That I practically stumbled off my horse, my legs feeling weak. Whoa, easy there, Maya said, grabbing my arm to steady me. Her grip was firm, her fingers cool against my overheated skin. What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost. That song, I repeated, shaking my head. It's not a real song. My mom made it up. Maya gave me a skeptical but gentle look. Maybe it just sounds similar. There are only so many notes, right? No. It was the same. Exactly the same. I looked back to where the man in the suit had been standing. That he was gone. That a frantic scan of the crowd revealed no sign of him. That it was as if he'd evaporated. Let's get a drink, Maya suggested, her tone practical. You need to sit down. She led me to a bar tucked under the shadow of the Ferris wheel. That we found a small, sticky table, and she went to get us beers. That I sat there, trying to slow my breathing, the phantom notes of that waltz still looping in my head. That it was a coincidence. That it had to be some obscure public domain tune my mother had unconsciously copied. The mind plays tricks, especially when stirred up by heat and proximity to a woman who made it hard to think straight. Maya returned with 2 frosty mugs. She sat down, and as she leaned forward to push one toward me, the neckline of her tank top gaped slightly. That I had a clear, unobstructed view down the front of her shirt, of the smooth swell of her breasts encased in that white lace. The sight was so vivid, so unexpectedly intimate, that it jolted me out of my panic for a second. That a different kind of tension coiled in my gut, desire, sharp and inconvenient. That I quickly looked away, my face heating with a mix of shame and arousal. So, she said, taking a long sip of her beer, leaving a foam mustache on her upper lip that she licked away, tell me about the song. I did that. I told her about Buster, about the rain, about carrying his limp body, about my mother at the piano. I'd never told anyone that story before. It felt too raw, too private. But sitting there with Maya, with the smell of her perfume cutting through the beer smell, it just came out. She listened, her brown eyes soft and focused entirely on me. When I finished, she didn't offer platitudes. She just reached across the table and placed her hand over mine. Her touch was electric. That's awful, Mark. I'm so sorry. We sat in silence for a moment. The weirdness of the song and the strange man began to recede, replaced by the simple, potent reality of her skin on mine. Maybe that was the point of this whole afternoon. A weird story to bond over. A shared moment. Let's go back, I said suddenly. Her eyebrows shot up. To the carousel? Are you sure? I need to know. It was a fluke. One weird song. That's all. She studied my face for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, if you're sure. We finished our beers and walked back. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows across the pier. The crowd had thinned out a little. The carousel was still spinning, this time playing a breezy, innocuous pop song from the 50s. There was no sign of the man in the suit. I felt a wave of relief. See? A coincidence. A trick of the mind. We bought another pair of tickets. This time, as we waited in line, I was hyper-aware of everything. The hum of the machinery, the painted smiles of the wooden animals, the way Maya's hip bumped against mine as we moved forward. I chose a different horse, a lion with a fierce, golden mane. Maya took a swan boat, sitting down and patting the space next to her. I joined her, our thighs pressing together on the small bench. The contact was almost unbearable. The ride started, the pop song ended, there was a click, a whir, and then a new song began. It was the waltz. Again, the same slow, heartbreaking notes. The same melody that had filled our living room on the worst day of my 11-year-old life. My blood ran cold. this wasn't a coincidence. The carousel's library had thousands of songs. The odds of getting the same one twice in a row were astronomical. The odds of it being this song, my song, were 0. Mark, Maya whispered, her voice tight that she'd heard it too. She knew that I couldn't speak, that I just stared straight ahead at the lion's snarling wooden face. The pier outside the ride blurred into a smear of color and light. The only thing that felt real was the oppressive weight of the music and the heat of Maya's leg against mine. And then I saw him. The man in the suit, that he was standing in the exact same spot as before, his hands still clasped behind his back. And he was smiling. That it wasn't a friendly smile, that it was a small, cold, knowing curve of the lips. His pale eyes were still fixed on me. The world seemed to tilt. The cheerful, spinning world of the carousel felt like a grotesque parody. The painted horses with their frozen gallops, the laughing children, it was all a veneer over something dark and invasive. This thing, this machine, was playing a song from the deepest, most painful vault of my memory, and that man, he knew. The ride felt like it lasted an eternity. When it finally stopped, I practically dragged Maya off the swan boat. My heart was hammering against my ribs. We need to find someone who runs this thing, I said, my voice trembling. The kiosk girl, Maya said, pointing. Maybe she can tell us something. We hurried over to the ticket booth. The teenage girl was still there, still on her phone. Excuse me, I said, my voice coming out too loud, too sharp. She looked up, annoyed. Yeah? The song that just played. The slow waltz. What's it called? Is it in the system? She blinked slowly. The system just plays random stuff, man. I don't know the names. Can you check? Please. It's important. She sighed, a dramatic, put-upon sound, and tapped a few times on a tablet next to her cash register. She squinted at the screen. Says here, Pet Requiem. That's a weird title. The name hit me like a physical blow. Asterisk Pet Requiem. Asterisk, who programs the music? I demanded. Is there a manager? I just sell tickets, dude, she said, already losing interest and looking back at her phone. The tech guys handle all that. They're not here on weekends. I stood there, frozen. Asterisk Pet Requiem. Asterisk, it wasn't just the melody. It had a name that described exactly what it was. Maya pulled me away from the booth. Mark, this is freaking me out. Let's just go. I let her lead me, my mind reeling. As we walked away, I glanced back one more time at the carousel. The man in the suit was gone, but sitting on the railing where he had been standing was a small, scruffy-looking terrier. It looked exactly like Buster. It was staring right at me, its head cocked. Then, as I watched, it hopped off the railing and trotted away, disappearing into the crowd. Did you see that? I whispered to Maya. See what? The dog. It looked just like... I couldn't finish the sentence. She followed my gaze, saw nothing, and squeezed my hand tighter. There's no dog, Mark. Come on. Let's get out of here. We didn't talk much on the walk back to my apartment in Lakeview. The setting sun painted the brick buildings in shades of orange and purple. Normally, I loved this time of day. Now, every shadow felt like it was hiding something. Every distant sound made me jump. My apartment was a mess, a typical bachelor pad with a decent view of the neighborhood. The second the door closed behind us, the strange, pressurized bubble we'd been in on the pier popped, and the full weight of the day crashed down on me. I slumped onto my sofa, burying my face in my hands. Maya didn't say anything. She just went to the kitchen and came back with 2 glasses of water. She sat down next to me, not touching me this time, but her presence was a solid, calming force. I could smell her perfume on the air. Something clean and floral. What the hell was that, Maya? My voice was muffled by my hands. I don't know, she said softly, but it wasn't nothing. I looked up at her. The last of the evening light was coming through the window, catching the side of her face, highlighting the perfect line of her jaw, the delicate curve of her ear. Her lower lip was caught between her teeth, a sign of her own anxiety. I had a sudden, overwhelming urge to kiss her, to lose myself in the simple physical reality of her, to use her as an anchor against the shifting, unreal horror of the day. It was a selfish, desperate thought, and it shamed me even as it consumed me. I keep thinking about that man, I said, turning away from her, staring at a crack in the wall. The way he looked at me. It was like he was waiting for me. Like he knew what song was going to play. Maybe he works there. A manager or something. In a full suit? On a day like this? And that dog, Maya. I swear to God, it was Buster. She was quiet for a long time. I could feel her thinking next to me. Okay, she said finally, her tone shifting to something more pragmatic. Let's be logical. The song. Is there any way it could be recorded? Did your mom ever record herself playing? No, never. Are you sure? An old tape maybe? Something she might have sent to a relative? I thought about it. My mother wasn't tech savvy. She hated cameras, hated recorders. She said they stole little pieces of your soul. But there was my grandfather. He'd been a bit of an audiophile. He'd passed away a few years after Buster. When we cleaned out his house, there had been boxes of old cassettes. My mom had just shoved them in the attic. I hadn't thought about them in years. My grandfather, I said slowly. He had a bunch of old tapes. My mom might have played for him once. But even if she did, how would it end up on a carousel in Chicago? I don't know, Maya admitted, but it's a thread. Maybe the company that programmed the music digitized a bunch of old, uncopyrighted material. It's a stretch, but it's more plausible than other things. Her logic was a life raft. I clung to it. A digital archive of old home recordings. A bizarre 1,000,000-to-1 coincidence. The man was just a weirdo. The dog was a stray that looked similar. My mind, stressed and suggestible, had done the rest. Yeah, I said, breathing a little easier. Yeah, that has to be it. The tension in the room eased. The horror of the afternoon began to recede, replaced by the simple late-evening intimacy of my apartment. The streetlights outside flickered on. I should probably go, Maya said, but she made no move to get up. Don't, I said, the word out of my mouth before I could stop it. Stay. Please. I don't want to be.